The View has hosted explosive confrontations before. Political arguments that went viral, celebrity feuds that made headlines, moments where the hosts themselves nearly came to blows. But nothing in the show's 27-year history prepared anyone for what happened when two of the world's most famous women sat next to each other. Meghan Markle arrived expecting the usual: sympathetic questions, supportive nods, a platform to discuss her foundation work. Angelina Jolie arrived expecting to promote her new humanitarian documentary. Neither expected to become enemies within the first 10 minutes. What followed was 17 minutes of the most uncomfortable television in daytime history. Meghan tried to fight back. Angelina calmly dismantled every attempt. And when Meghan finally stormed off stage, Angelina said 3 words that would be replayed 50 million times by the end of the week. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation, make sure you hit subscribe and smash that like button. Now, let's get into what really happened on The View. The View studio was buzzing with unusual energy. 2 A-list guests on the same episode was rare enough, but Meghan Markle and Angelina Jolie together? The producers knew they had something special. Both women were advocates for humanitarian causes. Both had navigated intense media scrutiny. Both had complicated relationships with family that played out publicly. The hosts took their positions. Whoopi Goldberg anchored from her usual spot, flanked by Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, Sarah Haynes, and Anna Navarro. The audience applauded as first Meghan, then Angelina, walked out and settled onto the guest couch. "Welcome," Whoopi's voice carried its usual warmth. "We've got 2 incredible women here today. Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, here to talk about Archewell's mental health initiatives, and Angelina Jolie, here to discuss her new documentary on global displacement. Ladies, thank you for being here." Both women smiled. Both looked relaxed. It wouldn't last. "Meghan, let's start with you," Joy said. "Archewell has been doing a lot of work around mental health awareness. Tell us what's driving that." Meghan turned to face the hosts, her posture perfect. "Mental health is deeply personal to me. I've been open about my own struggles, and I believe that by sharing our stories, we create space for others to seek help. Real advocacy means using your platform to genuinely connect with people who are suffering, not just showing up for photo opportunities." The comment seemed innocuous enough, but Angelina's head turned slightly. "That's wonderful," Sunny said. "Angelina, you've also been involved in advocacy work for decades. How do you approach—" "Can I just respond to something?" Angelina's voice was calm, measured. "I'm curious what distinguishes real advocacy from photo opportunities, because in my experience, the line isn't always as clear as people suggest." Meghan's smile flickered. "I just mean that genuine advocacy requires sustained commitment, not just showing up when cameras are present." "I've spent 23 years working with refugees," Angelina said. "I've been to Syria during active conflict. I've held dying children in camps where no cameras existed. Are you suggesting there's something inauthentic about that work? I wasn't referring to you specifically." "Then who were you referring to?" The air in the studio shifted. Whoopi leaned forward. "Ladies, I think we're all on the same team here." "I'm just asking a clarifying question," Angelina said, her eyes not leaving Meghan's face. "Because photo opportunities is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, usually by people who've done less work trying to diminish people who've done more." Meghan's composure held, but something hardened behind her eyes. "I've done extensive work through our foundation. Mental health awareness, veteran support, women's empowerment. For how long?" The question was simple. The implication was devastating. "Since we established Archewell." "Which was when? 2020? "Yes, but my advocacy work began long before that." "Doing what specifically? Because I'm genuinely curious. Before you married Harry, what humanitarian work were you doing?" Meghan's face flushed. "I was a global ambassador for World Vision. You spoke at the UN once, in 2015, about gender equality in education. It was a 7-minute speech." Angelina's voice remained perfectly calm. "I've testified before the UN Security Council multiple times. I've briefed Congress. I've met with heads of state in active war zones. I'm not saying this to diminish your speech. I'm asking why you're implying that other people's decades of work are photo opportunities." Joy tried to intervene. I think what Meghan was saying, I can speak for myself, Meghan snapped, then softened. I'm sorry, I wasn't making a comparison. I was speaking generally about the difference between performative activism and genuine engagement. And how do you measure the difference? By impact, by sustained commitment, by whether the work continues when the cameras stop. Angelina nodded slowly. My documentary follows 3 refugee families over 7 years. No publicity, no fanfare, just documentation of their journeys. The cameras stopped for most of that time. The work continued. Does that qualify as genuine engagement, or should I check with you first? The audience was frozen. The hosts exchanged glances. This was rapidly becoming something they couldn't control. Angelina, Sarah attempted gently, I think we can all agree that both of you are doing important work. Can we? Because I didn't come here to have my 23 years of humanitarian service implied away by someone who started 3 years ago. Angelina's voice never rose, but the steel in it was unmistakable. I have enormous respect for anyone who uses their platform for good, but respect is earned through work, not through press releases about work. Meghan's hands had balled into fists on her lap. You don't know anything about what I've done. Then tell me, specifically, name one policy that changed because of Archwell. Name one refugee you've personally helped resettle. Name one concrete outcome beyond raising awareness. Meghan's hands had balled into fists on her lap. You don't know anything about what I've done. Then tell me, specifically, name one policy that changed because of Archwell. Name one refugee you've personally helped resettle. Name one concrete outcome beyond raising awareness. Meghan opened her mouth, closed it. Awareness matters, she finally said. Changing the conversation matters. Changing the conversation is what people say when they haven't changed anything else. Angelina turned to face the hosts. I'm sorry, this isn't the discussion I came here to have, but I've spent too many years in too many places watching people actually die to listen to lectures about real advocacy from someone who's primarily advocated for herself. The audience made a collective sound, something between a gasp and a murmur of recognition. Whoopi's face showed genuine distress. Let's take a commercial break. No, Meghan's voice was sharp. I'm not going to let that stand. You don't know what I've been through. You don't know what I've sacrificed. Sacrificed for what? For who? Name them. For my family, for my sanity, for my... Those are sacrifices for yourself. I'm asking what you've sacrificed for others. There's a difference. Anna Navarro, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. Angelina, I think Meghan has faced genuine hardships. The media scrutiny, the institutional... I don't doubt her hardships. I'm questioning her positioning as an authority on authentic advocacy when her primary advocacy has been for herself and her husband. That's not criticism, it's observation. Meghan stood up abruptly, then sat back down. The false start betrayed her agitation. This is exactly what happens. Every time I try to do something positive, someone tears it down. First the tabloids, now you. I'm not the tabloids, I'm sitting right here, asking you direct questions, which you're not answering. The tabloids print rumors and speculation. I'm asking about verifiable facts. Those are different things. You're attacking me. I'm questioning you. If you can't tell the difference, that says something about how often you've been genuinely questioned. Meghan's face had gone red. I don't have to sit here and be interrogated? No, you don't. You can leave whenever you want. But if you do, you're proving exactly what I'm suggesting, that when faced with actual scrutiny instead of sympathetic platforms, you retreat. That's not fair. What's not fair? I've answered hard questions for 23 years about my relationship with my father, about my marriage, about every controversial choice I've ever made. I've sat in hostile interviews and engaged. You're in a friendly environment with hosts who want to support you, and you're calling basic questions an attack? Whoopi tried once more. Ladies, I really think we should... Let me ask you something, Angelina said, her focus entirely on Meghan. You've talked a lot about wanting to be known for your work rather than your title. What's the work, specifically? The Archwell Foundation. What has it accomplished? Concrete outcomes, not initiatives, not awareness campaigns. What's actually different in the world because of your foundation? Meghan's jaw worked. We've partnered with organizations addressing mental health access. Partnered how? Funding, on-the-ground work, or lending your name? All of those things. How much funding specifically? Where did it go? What programs exist now that didn't exist before? I don't have those numbers memorized. I have mine memorized because I did the work. I wrote the checks. I visited the programs. I know the names of the children whose education my foundation funded because I've met them, some of them annually, for over a decade. Angelina's voice softened slightly. I'm not saying you haven't done anything good. I'm saying the gap between your rhetoric about real advocacy and your documented work is significant, and the first person to close that gap should be you, not people who question it. Meghan's eyes had filled with tears. Whether from frustration or genuine hurt, it was impossible to tell. You have no idea what I've been through. You're right, I don't. But I know what I've been through, and I know what the people I've worked with have been through. Children who watched their parents murdered. Mothers who walked for weeks carrying dying infants. Families who lost everything to wars they didn't start. When you've held those people, when you've heard those stories, when you've spent decades trying to help in whatever small way you can, being lectured about real advocacy by someone whose primary hardship was negative press coverage feels disproportionate. My hardship was not just negative press. I know. I've read about it. You've made sure everyone has read about it. You've told your story on Oprah, in a documentary, in interviews, through your husband's book. You've been very effective at communicating your suffering. I'm asking what else you've communicated. What have you done for people whose suffering can't be monetized into Netflix deals? The audience shifted uncomfortably. The hosts looked at each other with growing alarm. I think, Sonny said carefully, that both perspectives here are valid. Are they? Angelina turned to her. Is complaining about tabloid coverage equivalent to advocating for refugees fleeing genocide? Is being criticized on social media comparable to watching children starve in camps? I'm not saying Meghan hasn't struggled. I'm saying perspective matters. And when someone with her level of privilege lectures about real advocacy, she should expect to be asked what hers looks like. Meghan grabbed her water glass, took a long drink, then set it down too hard. You've clearly decided who I am. Nothing I say will change that. I haven't decided anything. I've asked questions. You've answered some with deflection and others with accusations of attack. That's not me deciding who you are. That's you showing me. I'm showing you someone who's been traumatized by exactly this kind of questioning, scrutiny, basic journalism. If those things traumatize you, public life might not be the right fit, because the work I do requires facing much harder things than uncomfortable interview questions. You don't understand the pressure. I've been famous since I was 20 years old. I've been followed by paparazzi. I've had my marriage dissected globally. I've been called everything from a homewrecker to a saint. I understand pressure. What I don't understand is treating that pressure as equivalent to actual suffering and then positioning yourself as an authority on how to help people who are actually suffering. Meghan stood up fully this time. I'm not going to sit here and be compared. You made the comparison. You implied that real advocacy was different from photo opportunities. I'm asking you to clarify which side of that line your work falls on. If you can't answer, that's an answer in itself. Joy made one final attempt. Meghan, please sit down. Angelina, maybe we can find some common ground. I'm happy to find common ground, Angelina said. I think Meghan has a platform that could do enormous good. I think her visibility could help causes that desperately need attention. What I'm resisting is the suggestion that she's already done that work, when the evidence suggests she's primarily done publicity for the work. That's incredibly unfair. Meghan was still standing. What's unfair? I've asked you 3 times for concrete examples. You've given me generalities. If I asked about my work, I could give you names, locations, funding amounts, program outcomes, legislative changes I've personally advocated for. That's not because I'm better than you. It's because I've been doing this for 23 years instead of 3. Time matters. Receipts matter. Authenticity requires both. Authenticity requires receipts. Meghan repeated the phrase bitterly. That's a nice soundbite. Did you practice it? No, I practice my testimony for congressional hearings. I practice my presentations for UN briefings. Soundbites emerge when you've thought about something long enough that clarity becomes natural. You're insufferable. Perhaps, but I'm also documented. My work exists in the world beyond press releases. Can you say the same? Meghan looked around the studio, at the hosts who couldn't help her, at the audience watching in stunned silence, at the cameras capturing everything. This is exactly what always happens. Someone decides I'm the enemy, and nothing I say matters. You're not my enemy, Angelina said quietly. You're someone I don't know making claims I find questionable. That's not enmity, it's skepticism. If you can't distinguish between the two, you might want to examine why disagreement feels like attack. Because it's always phrased as disagreement while actually being destruction. I'm not trying to destroy you, I'm asking you to substantiate your claims. If that feels destructive, the problem isn't my questions, it's the fragility of what you've built. Meghan's face contorted. For a moment, it seemed like she might cry. Then something harder took over. I don't have to prove anything to you. You're right, you don't. But you chose to come on television and talk about your advocacy work. When you do that, questions are part of the package. If you wanted to do the work quietly, you could. You haven't, so the questions follow. I've done more than you know. Then tell me. I've been asking, you've been deflecting. At some point, deflection becomes its own kind of answer. Meghan grabbed her purse from beside the couch. I'm leaving. Whoopi stood up. Meghan, please. No, I came here for a conversation about my foundation work. Instead, I've been attacked by someone who's clearly decided to be my enemy. Angelina remained seated, perfectly calm. I asked you questions. Every question was relevant to claims you made. If you can't answer questions about your own work, that's not my hostility. It's your lack of preparation. I won't be lectured. Then don't make statements that invite questions. Real advocacy versus photo opportunities is a judgment. Judgments invite responses. If you wanted to discuss your work without scrutiny, you shouldn't have implied that other people's work was inferior. Meghan was already moving toward the exit. She stopped and turned back. History will vindicate me. Angelina nodded slowly. Maybe. History will also remember what you actually did versus what you said you were doing. For your sake, I hope those align more than they appear right now. You're cruel. I'm honest. They feel the same when you're not used to it. Meghan walked off stage. The sound of her heels echoed through a completely silent studio. The hosts sat frozen. Angelina remained composed, her hands folded in her lap. Whoopi broke the silence first. Well, that was unexpected. I'm sorry, Angelina said. I didn't come here planning for that. What happened? Joy asked, still looking stunned. She made a comment about real advocacy versus photo opportunities. I've spent 23 years in the field. I've lost friends to the work. I've seen things that will never leave me. Being dismissed as someone who does photo opportunities by someone who's primarily done publicity, I couldn't let that stand. You were pretty hard on her, Sarah said carefully. I asked her questions. She couldn't answer them. That's not me being hard. That's her being unprepared for basic scrutiny. Anna leaned forward. But she has been through a lot. The media treatment, the family stuff. I know, and those are real. But hardship doesn't automatically translate to expertise. Suffering doesn't make you an authority on alleviating other people's suffering. She conflates her personal struggles with humanitarian credentialing, and that conflation is worth questioning. Sunny nodded slowly. That's actually a fair point. I'm not trying to be unfair. I'm trying to maintain standards for work that matters. When advocacy becomes branding, people who actually need help get lost in the marketing. The encounter lasted 17 minutes before Meghan walked off. Its impact would last much longer. For Angelina Jolie, it was a moment that reminded the public why she'd earned respect in the humanitarian space, not through press releases, but through decades of documented, verifiable, often dangerous work. For Meghan Markle, it was something else entirely. Not a hostile journalist, not a conservative commentator with a predetermined agenda, but another celebrity, another woman, another advocate, someone whose credibility couldn't be dismissed as bias or jealousy. Angelina Jolie had asked simple questions. Meghan Markle couldn't answer them. And in that gap between claims and evidence, between rhetoric and receipts, the audience saw something that no PR strategy could spin away. Some people talk about advocacy, others document it. And when those two groups meet on the same couch, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. What do you think? Was Angelina too harsh, or did Meghan deserve to be questioned? Who would you want to see on The View next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video to help it reach more people, subscribe to our channel